All right, so patient comes in, we're gonna do the crown prep number 4, and we're gonna make it temporary. The first step for the temporary that makes your life much easier is to have a nice mold, and then you take the impression for your temporary. That's the most important part. If you do it right, the temporary is going to take 5 minutes. If you don't do it right, it takes forever, and then you have to redo it. You're going to break it, the margin you have to add, and so on. So, to get a nice temporary, I recommend if there's anterior tooth and then basically cosmetic, use like the PVS material, like the heavy body, even the light body to do it. But if the posterior, you can use the body dispersion material the way that we usually do. So, I need the regular. You have the quarter tray.
The white one?
But that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So to do this, as you know, we're gonna fill the tray. The tray, make sure it's perfectly fitted to the patient's arch. If it's good, you're gonna load the tray. But before I load the tray, I'm gonna. This is something that should get you in a habit that you have to inject the material first around the tooth to capture the cervical part before we load the tray. Or you load the tray, but that part, the sequence doesn't matter, what needs to be done beforehand. So let's say we're going to do number 4. We make sure that the material goes on the cervical part of the tooth. I'm going to put some material here. We don't need it to overload it, just the area that you're going to do the temporary, that's going to be good enough. You don't need to put whole arch. So there's no opposing here, so I have to push it with my finger. So when the patient bites, it's going to help also with the bite, with the kind of occlusion as well.
I want him to do where the tooth is broken.
Okay, if the tooth is broken, the best way to do is to build it up first. To build it up, you can use wax, but the wax is not as accurate as kind of composite. You can use any kind of composite to just build it up and take your impression. All right, so what you need to see in your impression, see how sharp and nice cervical portion you see in here and here. This is a good one. So if you feel kind of like a, so if the example of most of the time what I see the assistant do, this is what, I mean, this was not my goal, this was my goal. So if most of the time what I see, they don't capture the margin, they just put it dropping there, and then you're going to have something like a pulling of the material in here, and you won't have the cervical portion. So what's going to happen, this part is going to get filled with kind of temporary material, and you have to spend time to adjust it and so on. But if you get such a nice sharp cervical portion, trust me, this less than 5 minutes is going to be right there. Okay, so this is the most important part to do. So now I'm going to do a quick prep on the tooth, and then we're going to make the temporary. You don't need to do this with the mouse. Anyhow, okay, the next step with the mold, here you go. So when we want to load the mold, it's important, first of all, just milk it a little bit to make sure it's a nice mix. Then when you start filling it, don't take it out. So go in, and you don't, because you won't want to get any bubbles. There you go. All right, we're going to keep it for a few minutes. There are 2 techniques of making the temporaries. One way is to cement it basically with temporary cement. And the other technique is basically to let it sit in there, and because of contraction of the material, it's going to basically squeeze the tooth, and it's going to get stuck in there. So you don't need to, but that one requires to have the tooth completely dry, and it needs to stay there at least for 7-8 minutes.
Okay.
Then, if you take it out, there's no way to take it out. It's going to, you have to cut it off. Okay, but it requires to kind of to remove the flash or excess during the patient's mouth using the kind of burr or something. So both are doable. I usually do it with the cement, but it prefers basically to do the second technique. If you do something like veneers or something, that's good. For the full mouth cases, that's the best technique, but it's going to be very difficult to just retrieve these and then not to break it and just cement it. For the full mouth, it's better to do like a locked on technique. Let's take it out, see how it goes. All right. So, from the thickness of the flash that you see in here, you see if it, you see the good or see is you can easily let me take this one out because for trimming it, so at least you can see. All right. How much time do you think I need to spend for this temporary to trim it?
Not even a minute.
Yeah, not even a minute, for sure. See, what was the secret? The secret was, first of all, the prep should be a good prep.
Mm-hmm.
All the doctors here, they're doing an awesome job for the prep.
The
because
preliminary.
you can see all the kind of the margin.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's a good prep, and if you have a good preliminary, which is the main one, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
it's right there. You can see all the margins here, and you have a little bit flash in here. And I'm going to go over let's go there to the thing. All right, the last step is going to be trimming the temporary. First of all, you're going to go with the slow speed, not too fast, to have control. When you want to trim it, make sure that your burr is parallel to the wall of the crown. Don't bend it 90 degrees or 45 degrees. It should be perfectly parallel. So that way you don't make the margin or the shoulder basically narrow. Because if you do so, it's going to cause what we call it the sub margin. So the margin is going to be sub, so it won't cover the whole width of the kind of the margin, and by the time that you want to cement the crown, the gum is going to cover the non-covered kind of shoulder. So as you see, it was just less than a minute adjustment, and all the margins are perfectly trimmed. You're going to try it in the model. As if you get an Explorer, you can see that everything is perfectly aligned with basically the margin. As I said, this is not going to be so complicated. It's a very easy procedure as long as you follow the steps that I told you, especially the mold. That it should be very accurate, and it's going to be just less than 5 minutes. I hope you enjoyed this video.